All right, writing class. We are talking about what in writing right now? What are we going to be writing about? You guys all are going to be writing a what? McKenna? Yes, a fairy tale, a fractured fairy tale, which means it's one that you're taking the traditional fairy tale and you're mixing it up. So fairy tale Cinderella. Who can tell me about the fairy tale Cinderella? Who is Cinderella? Ella. Did she start off as a princess?
Well, she was like a maid or something.
Kind of. Her dad remarried the evil stepmother. Dun, dun, dun. And the evil stepsisters. And so then the story goes, and she meets the prince, and she has a fairy godmother, and they live happily ever after. Yes.
And the second Cinderella,
The second Cinderella.
yeah, there's three of them.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I'm not up on my Cinderella stories, I guess.
Anastasia, she like begins to become like friends with Cinderella.
And that's one of the stepsisters who was not very nice to her at first. So I have a fractured Cinderella story. It's called Bigfoot Cinderella. Cinderella. So I am reading you these so you know you can mix these up. These do not have to be, you have to kind of follow the traditional storyline, but it can be very different. Bigfoot was not in the original Cinderella. So let's find out. Oh my, she's beautiful. Once upon a time, there you go. It's a fairy tale. You start with once upon a time. In an old growth forest, a band of Bigfoots lived. An enormous snag towered above the other trees close to their camp. Inside the hollow hall of bark lived a dashing Bigfoot prince. That must be the dashing prince. He is lovely. He was tall and dark as Douglas fir, with feet like cedar stumps. He was odoriferous in his tree home and carnivorous, and so horrendously hairy that Bigfoot women near and far longed to marry him. How romantic. Whenever they saw him lurching along, they blocked his path like deadfalls. They draped wildflowers around themselves. They batted their matted eyelashes and stunned him into love. But the prince loved nature best. "No pick flowers," he bellowed at them in a voice as rough as bark. Now look at those lovely, lovely Bigfoot women. They're very beautiful. Very much like Cinderella. Would you say? Cinderella, she was so beautiful. Prince Charming was so handsome.
They look like giant moles.
They're interesting. All right, friends, let's listen. In this place there lived a Bigfoot woman and her 3 daughters. Well, really only 2 are hers. The third was a stepchild. Does that sound familiar? Cinderella, stepmother with her 2 stepsisters. The daughters were puny things with dinky feet, almost furless as Bigfoots go, and as sour as little green berries, meaning they weren't nice. They spent their days bathing and picking their teeth with fish bones and sleeking their fur with pine cones. For fun, they threw rocks at spotted owls. Well, that's not nice. The stepdaughter was just the opposite. Nearly as woolly as a mammoth, golden as a banana slug, with feet like log canoes. She loved nature and would harm no creature. So that is who we're talking about. She has very large feet. Hence, Bigfoot.
Oh, the stepsisters are creepy.
Her stepsisters despised her, and they made her work. Although her name was Ella, they roared at her so much that everyone called her Rella. Rella, fix this. Rella, catch fish. They forced her to comb her fur and stick wildflowers in it. If she tugged them out, they put back twice as many. In spite of this primping, Rella was sooty from the fire and stinking from the fish. So they teased her like stinging mosquitoes. You beast, they laughed and held their noses. You positively reek. You absolute freak. And they bathed her a lot in the creek. Eek. One morning, Rella went to the river to get supper. She fished all day and tossed her catch into the bank in a silvery pile. Suddenly, a grizzly bear appeared. He seemed hungry. Rella was bigger than the bear, so she could have shooed him away, but she was too kind. She let him have the fish. When she shambled home empty-handed, her stepsisters rubbed their bellies in bed and bellowed, "Food, food, food!" They forced her to fish all night. Now, every year, the Bigfoot Prince gave a great fun fest. There were gifts and food and game, the jump the fire, bear cave hide and seek, and hurl the hemlock. But log rolling was the favorite. This year, whichever woman rolled the prince off a log into the river would become his wife. Rella's puny sisters hoped to dunk the prince. When me snag a putrid furball prince, me rule whole tree place, yelled the older one. Me pick all flower, the younger one grinned. Then they bellowed together, "Power, power, power!" So in Cinderella, what did they have that all the women wanted to go to? They didn't have a log rolling contest. What did they have? Ella, a ball. And everyone dressed up in their beautiful dresses. And what was the prince going to do from the ball? What was he going to choose? Emmy? A princess. So this is going with the original story, just a little different. So they smoothed their pitiful fur, then spruced up with wildflowers, and wearing fine bark clogs to grip the logs. Oh, those are nice. Me go too, Rella hollered after them. She adored to sweat and win at games. Her sister hooted so hard they fell down. You stay, catch plenty fish. We catch prince. Now Rella longed to go. Sadly, she stared at the river. She saw a fish jump. She made a wish on the fish. Me wish go to fun fest. Me wish dunk prince. Heartfelt wish is true wish, growled a gruff voice. And so you go. Oh. You may want to gander a guess as to who the bear is. Grant. Rella spun around. She was staring at a bear, the very one she had given the fish. Who are you? Or no, who you? She asked. Me, your berry godfather. Rella was overjoyed, then underjoyed. She mumbled, "Me got no bark clogs to keep on long. Feet too big." "No way," snorted the godfather. He wiped the air with a paw, and instantly an enormous pair of clogs appeared. Rella tried them on. They fit perfectly. Then the grizzly waved a paw over her head, and poof! The wildflowers she wore were dust. He patted and matted her fur and entangled like the very forest floor. All right, so what did the fairy godmother do for Cinderella? What did she make her? A beautiful what to wear? Olivia, a beautiful gown. And so she has enormous clogs. What did the fairy godmother give Cinderella to wear on her feet? Helen.
Like long shoes.
Like what kind of shoes?
Long.
No, Cinderella.
Oh, glass slippers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think so. Yes, glass slippers. So, even though this is very, very different, it still is following the traditional story. And also Cinderella looked absolutely beautiful, whereas the fairy godfather is making Rella more ugly, because that's just what she likes. She boomed, "Thanks," and gave him a crunching hug. "Be back sundown," he warned, "or you be like sisters, make you. No furry and smelly, but plenty flowery." Rella wasn't worried. She had lots of time. She skipped off, shaking the whole forest as she went. What was the fairy godmother's warning to Cinderella? That you had to be back by when? Ella. Yes. So again, it's following the traditional story. Oh my. At the Fun Fest, there was Bigfoot women from every clan. The games had begun. One by one, women leaped into the log where the prince crouched ready. One by one, he dumped them into the water. Rella's stepsisters hated games, but to catch the prince, they'd do anything, even give logs a twirl, and they hoped a good drenching might even wash off his stench. But they never got a chance. When their turn came, the prince saw their wildflower chains and glowered. He tossed them in the water, snarling, "No pick flowers!" He really doesn't like flowers to be picked. The day grew late. Everyone had tried to win. Everyone had failed. The Bigfoot prince rumbled, "Rats, no bride!" He was about to slouch home when thunk! Rella bounded onto the log, pounding her chest and whooping, "Me dunk prince!" Grunting with all her might, she spun the log like a big twig. Then she gave it a twist and flop! The prince flopped into the river. Ooh, what does that mean, friends? There was a stunned silence. The Bigfoots were slow-witted, so it took them a while to figure out what had happened. When at last they began to chant, "Bride, bride, bride," the sun was setting. Rella saw that and rushed into the dense trees, shrieking, "Eek!" just as her matted fur went sleek and wildflowers began to sprout. The prince lurched from the water, dripping and crushed. His dream woman, shaggy as the forest floor, smelly as fish, and strong, was gone. Scratching his craggy head, he slumped down on the boulder. "Drat! Drat! Drat!" He gnashed his mossy teeth. "Where'd my stinking beauty go?" Then he saw one big bark clog. Hers! Now perhaps he could find his princess. So when Cinderella was fleeing the ball, what did she leave behind? One what? Tessa. Yes, and so when Rella was leaving the forest, what did she leave behind? One what? Olivia. Wooded clog. Yes. So again, the prince shuffled from snag to snag, cave to cave, lugging his lost clog. But though all the Bigfoot women tried it on, it was too large for anyone. Was Cinderella's glass slipper really tiny or big? It was tiny. The moment he reached Rella's cave, her stepmother and stepsisters pounced on the prince, wrestled the clog from him, and jumped into it eagerly. Their feet were way too small. They all fit at once. Then Rella bound up yelling, "Me try, me try, me. She did, and her foot fit the clog like a seed in a pod. When she pulled out its mate, the Bigfoot prince knew he'd found his bride. He thumped his chest and roared with joy. The stepsisters roared too in tantrums. They yanked up some wildflowers and saplings. Their mother kicked the prince black and blue. Well, that's not nice. Soon, there was a rowdy wedding in the old-growth forest. Everyone was invited. Even Rilla's stepmother and stepsisters could come. And they followed these rules carefully. No pick flowers, no pull trees, no kick royal family. And they lived happily ever after. All right, so this is a fractured version of Cinderella. Is it anything like Cinderella? Very little. Follows the basic premise of Cinderella. How did the story start? Once upon a time. So your fairy tales will start with once upon a time. All right, so what I want you to do now is work on your mini, which is, if you met your fairy godmother, what would you wish for? And I want you to draw a picture also. So if you met your fairy godmother, what would you wish for? So now you may take some time to write your mini and illustrate it. And you can do the same